Welcome to the Great Compromise Podcast. How are you doing today, Jim?
I'm great. Ready to debate.
Awesome. Now, before we start, let's talk about the show format. This will be a somewhat structured debate between Jim and myself. The pro side will start, and will explain their point of view. Then the con side will follow with theirs. After both sides have gone, we'll head into an open debate, and that's when the fun starts. Our topic today is abortion. So, what is abortion? An abortion is a procedure to end a pregnancy. It uses medicine or surgery to remove the embryo or fetus and placenta from the uterus. Why are we talking about abortion? The new law in Texas brings this controversial topic back to the forefront. Although we will not be discussing that law today, it is an important topic to talk about and see if there's even a possibility for us to have some common ground. This is what we're going to debate today, so let's get into it. This week, I'll be taking the pro side. I am pro-choice. Abortion is commonly argued in a religious context, so it's worth noting that I'm both a Christian and pro-choice. You can have your opinion, but using that to take away someone's right to choose is never the right move. Jesus never took away anyone's choice. He gave advice and set an example, but he never took choices away from people, even when it resulted in his own death. Secondly, abortion laws commonly punish those performing or assisting in the attainment of an abortion, which further isolates and jeopardizes the health of the individual who has decided that an abortion is the right choice for them. This decision is often agonizing and stressful due to other life circumstances. Being further isolated and risking one's health is the exact opposite of what they need from their community during this time. When it isn't legal, people still get abortions. The procedure is much more dangerous and can result in death. Making things illegal won't make them go away. They're just done less safely and reputably. Lastly, there are not enough quality resources, access, and support to make abortion illegal. The foster system is broken, so for example, putting a child up for adoption is not a perfect solution. Sex education in our country doesn't widely teach students about their full range of options, since abstinence only is still so common. So until everything is fixed, abortion just can't be made illegal.
Thank you, Victoria. Now, I am on the pro-life side of this argument. So when does life actually start? Well, I would say life starts at conception, and I wouldn't be alone. According to a 2021 Gallup poll, 47% of adults identify as pro-life. So for the sake of math, that's about half the country. And why does it matter when life starts? Well, because the pro-life argument is that abortion is ending a life. And if half the country thinks that life starts at conception, there's very little that can justify ending that life. Now, let's talk about eugenics. For those who do not know what eugenics are, it's the practice or advocacy of improving the human species by selectively mating people with specific desirable hereditary traits. It aims to reduce human suffering by, quote, breeding out disease, disabilities, and so-called undesirable characteristics from the human population. Eugenics was increasingly discredited as unscientific and racially biased during the 20th century, especially after the adoption of its doctrines by the Nazis in order to justify their treatment of Jews, disabled people, and other minority groups. So why am I bringing this up? Well, we all know of Planned Parenthood, right? They're the largest single provider of abortions in the United States. Their founder, Margaret Sanger, was a vocal eugenicist. In a 1921 article, she wrote that the most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the over-fertility of the mentally and physically defective. But that's not all. In a 1939 letter to Dr. C.J. Gamble, Sanger urged him to enlist the help of spiritual leaders to justify their deadly work, writing, "We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out the idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members." And frankly, she succeeded. African Americans make up 38% of all abortions tracked in 2016. And even the Guttmacher Institute notes that the abortion rate for black women is almost 5 times that for white women. Abortion is Margaret Sanger's legacy, and she would be proud.
Thanks, Jim. All right, let's begin the debate. I want to address your points. If nearly 50% of the population believes that life begins at conception, then over 50% believes that it doesn't. Next, the fact that the founder of Planned Parenthood was a believer in eugenics is horrifying. That's rough, but I don't think that value holds true for most who have had to get an abortion or have considered it. Nearly 60% of people who obtain an abortion already have children. They're not murderers, they're mothers trying to create a better life for themselves and their children. The fact that such a high percentage of people that get abortions are African American is probably a result of the racial inequality and pay disparity for African American people who are stuck in poverty and have a harder time climbing out. When you start low, it's going to be even harder to have a good, comfortable life for yourself and your children if you're continually having more mouths to feed. And the fact that contraception is where it is today, surprise pregnancies happen all of the time. Nearly all abortions occur within the first 12 weeks of pregnancy.
Okay, so let's go back to the first point. The Gallup poll from 2021. Let me just read the stats. Pro-life, 47% of U.S. adults. Pro-choice, 49% of U.S. adults. And then the rest had no opinion, which is a small number. But so it's pretty close to half the country.
So does that just lead us to 50-50 and agree to disagree on that specific point?
I mean, yeah, I think we have to. If the country's split, I think we have to be split on that point.
I think so.
But it's not, my point was it's not a small number of people who think that life starts at conception. It seems like, especially these days, it just appears that most of the country is pro-choice, but it's really half and half. And so that was my whole point there.
Okay.
Back to eugenics. Yes, Margaret Sanger was terrible, and even Planned Parenthood has been distancing themselves from her lately, which is probably a good call.
They should. Let's do that.
On their part, but it doesn't change the fact that she founded them and she was a eugenicist. I was reading somewhere, and I'm sorry I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there are more Planned Parenthoods in minority neighborhoods than there are anywhere else in the country. So is that Margaret Sanger's design? Is that unintentional? Well, I'll leave that up to the listener.
Do you think... I would love the statistics on who attends those Planned Parenthoods, because I think there are so few in certain states that people go from all over to get their services. It's not that it's specifically for impoverished people. I mean, I definitely have heard stories of people driving very far to go to a Planned Parenthood because they were desperate. It's not like only for impoverished people.
No, I understand that, but why are they more in these minority neighborhoods? Is it eugenics working, or is it a coincidence? I find it very hard to believe it's a coincidence.
I think that's true of so many services, though. Like, the Health and Human Services headquarters is not, like, in a highly affluent area. It's going to be easy for people to access who need assistance, and people who need assistance in an affluent area are going to go there. Like, it's not... I think when we're creating services, we have to remember who has transportation and who doesn't. Like, if I'm affluent and in need of Planned Parenthood, I can easily find a way to get there. If I'm struggling and I need Planned Parenthood, then that could be the end of my access to it. you know, like they don't have transportation, bus routes, trains, like those are very unreliable in certain parts of the country. You just need a car to get everywhere in New Hampshire.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. I don't know the answer.
I also don't know the answer.
I mean, as far as Margaret Sanger is concerned, she'd think it would be a happy little accident that worked out that way.
I'm not arguing that she sounds like a terrible person. That's...
Okay, good.
Eugenics is awful. This person sounds like she was terrible. I don't think that eugenics is directly related to abortion.
Okay. This is where we disagree. But now I want to pivot to a different argument. And so earlier I referenced the Guttmacher Institute, and that is a pro-choice research organization. I just want to make that clear. I want to read off some statistics from them. First of all, the Washington Post reported in 2014, roughly 12,000 abortions took place at or over 21 weeks, citing findings from the Guttmacher Institute. And I don't know what you would consider to be a late-term abortion, but these days, doctors say that a baby can usually survive at 22 weeks outside of the womb. Okay, that's just that point. I want to read some other stats from the Guttmacher Institute. They did a survey in 2004, and that's the most recent data I have here, but they said regarding decisions or the reasons why women get abortions, so 74% say that having a baby would dramatically change my life. 73% say they can't afford a baby right now. 48% said they don't want to be a single mother or they're having relationship problems. 38% say they have completed their childbearing. 1% were victims of rape. And less than 0.5% said it's a pregnancy as a result of incest. Now, I thought these numbers were interesting. And again, this is from a pro-choice organization. But I think that when the highest reason, the 74%, is having a baby would dramatically change my life, I mean, that's pretty generic, but I don't know if that's a good reason to kill a child. Would you say that's a good reason to kill a child, Victoria?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say that they're killing a child. But I'm wondering if the same people that checked off having a baby would dramatically change my life, which was 74%, would also have ticked off, I can't afford a baby right now. That's 73%. So I think that is a huge part of this, is that raising a child is very expensive. And that could be overwhelming for somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck and trying to create a good life for the children they already have. I think we both have research that says that a majority of people who get abortions already have children. So these are not, like I said, murderers or terrible people. They're trying to do the best with what they have. When I read these statistics, I'm overwhelmed with empathy for these women who had to make a horrible choice. This had to be really difficult. And I don't think that this is a result of eugenics or bad morals or selfishness. This feels selfless. Like, what a difficult choice to have to go through to create just a better life for your family where they have enough food, they can go to a good school, you've got enough clothes. Like, living impoverished changes not just the quality of your life, but your life expectancy as a whole. I think that this choice can be really empowering for people. In other countries, contraception is controversial. And just giving women access to a clinic where they can get abortion or even get contraception can pull them out of poverty. Because it's that same situation where you just have more children than you can support and you're just drowning.
Okay, I don't want to sound unempathetic, because I am empathetic for these women. This is an extremely difficult decision they've come to, and it's obviously the fact that half the country believes one way and half the country believes the other. It's very difficult. But when you say words like selfless or empowering to talk about abortion, that feels unempathetic towards the child that is not able to live their life. And that's how I see this argument.
I understand your point of view. I don't share it. Since I don't believe that life begins at conception, nothing about this seems, I don't know, like I have a lot of empathy for the woman that's making the choice not to continue with her pregnancy. But I don't believe that there is a murdered child involved.
Okay, and again, half the country would agree with you, which is fair, but, half the country would agree with me too. So let's pivot again. I want to talk about bald eagles. Are you a fan of bald eagles, Victoria?
I don't think I have a huge opinion on bald eagles. They sure are birds, Jim.
How dare you, because they're our nation's symbol. So let's talk about bald eagles. So I just recently found out bald eagles are no longer considered an endangered species, which is great news for the bald eagles.
Good for them.
And which is always great news for America. But bald eagles have laws protecting their eggs. Laws that come with heavy fines and potential jail time for destroying bald eagle eggs. Now, would you say it would be, at the very least, inconsistent for this country to have laws protecting unborn bald eagles, but not equal laws protecting unborn children?
What an interesting argument. I did not see you going there. Okay. Well, if bald eagles were recently an endangered animal, then I think it's smart to go to measures to try to protect them from becoming extinct. Are you arguing that the human population is an endangered species? Because there are lots of us.
I'm not arguing that. In fact, bald eagles are not endangered species anymore.
They recently were, though, so they were just brought out of being endangered?
I'm just asking about the consistency of the laws. Why is it that there are stronger laws protecting unborn bald eagles than laws protecting unborn humans? Do you think that's fair or consistent?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. That seems rational, that they almost were pushed out of existence, and so we're taking extra measures to protect them.
Under the law, it sounds like we care more about bald eagles, a bird which you claim to have no interest in, more than humans.
No, it doesn't. What that tells me is that we don't want animals to become extinct, and we're doing what we have to.
That's all it tells you?
Yep. That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Just an interesting point, I thought. It just, on paper, it sounds like we care more about unborn birds.
No, it doesn't.
It definitely does.
What else are we doing for the bald eagles right now?
That's what we're doing.
Are we supplying them with...
We're doing more for the unborn bald eagles than we are for unborn humans.
I think that we need to be doing more for the born humans so that we have better systems in place.
We can do that too.
The foster system is not a good option.
I disagree. I mean, it could always have improvement, but it's not a bad option.
I think that I would have to research the outcomes from the foster system, but there are a lot of bad experiences that come out of it. I don't believe that adoption or fostering is a bad thing, but I think plenty of people take advantage of the system and don't do it with the right motives. And that being bumped around as a foster kid is a really hard life. Like, that's just traumatic. So if I was making a decision, I wouldn't say, oh, everything's going to be okay because there's the foster system. That wouldn't make me feel more confident about the decision that I'm faced with. So I think we need to be doing more for people that are here struggling in our society before we start protecting what I don't believe to be an unborn life and making that some massive topic. Like, let's focus on what we have and protect what we have.
No, I agree that the adoption system isn't perfect, but I think it has helped a lot of children. The majority of them, frankly. And yes, it could have some improvement, and I hope that somebody soon improves it, but to say the whole system needs to get thrown out or isn't worthwhile,
Whoa,
I
did
don't know.
not say that.
Okay, maybe I went to the extreme
Oh my
there,
gosh.
but...
I'm not anti-adoption, to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
I think adoption is fantastic. I've seen it a lot. I'm pro-adoption, but it's an overwhelmed system. So adding to an already overwhelmed system that has a lot of flaws is not going to help it get better. I don't think that that's a argument against abortion, is let's continue to overwhelm this system.
Well, yeah, the system needs work, but I would say that's a different debate. Exactly what the system needs to improve it, but I would say it is a far better option than killing a child, which comes back to the base point that we disagree on.
Yes.
Are we going to talk about Jesus? Would you like to talk about Jesus, since you brought him up?
I brought Jesus up because I think that it's a common argument against abortion. And so we know the arguments that I would say traditional Christian anti-choice people make. I think that that's just not a good argument. Jesus wouldn't take choices away from people. That's all I was trying to say.
You don't think Jesus cared about the little guy, those without voices of their own, those who
We're
aren't
just
strong
circling
enough
back
to
to the same thing we don't
to
agree
speak for
on.
themselves? We are. That's the whole point of this argument.
Thing. I don't think that's how life starts, and I don't think that judging and banning and isolating women going through a difficult choice is something that Jesus would do.
Okay, we're going to circle back to Jesus. Let's put a pin in Jesus.
Wow, he's gone through enough.
Too soon, maybe. But when do you think life starts?
I think that life starts at birth.
At birth, okay. So is an abortion the day before a woman's due date an acceptable time for an abortion? Because the child's not alive yet.
No, but
Okay.
those are like unheard of
I
unless
understand.
it's not a viable life.
I completely understand. I'm just trying to get to the nitty gritty. So life starts at birth, but you do not like the idea of an abortion the day before the due date. Okay, well, doctors say that babies can survive at 22 weeks now outside of the womb. Would you argue that is when life starts, at 22 weeks?
I'm not a doctor. I don't know how likely survival is at 22 weeks. Are we saying that, like, with constant supervision and a lot of machinery, this 22-week-old infant could survive?
I believe so.
So I think that we're getting off track, though.
I don't think we are.
I think we are, because the way that I look at this argument is not that I hate babies and want to kill life. It's that I'm pro-life. Like, I'm pro people making the most of their life and living a full life, not just being, like, struggling and barely making it through and then bringing in more life that doesn't have very much opportunity.
So because that child would potentially not have very much opportunity, it shouldn't get a chance to live?
I think that because a choice made early on could allow the rest of a family to thrive, I don't know what's wrong with that. It's not ending a life. Now, would I be more in favor for better contraception and wider use of other methods than relying on abortion? Of course.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that too.
I think working upstream is always the answer. I think that better sex education classes are the answer, better access to contraception, less controversial opinions around contraception, that's still an issue. Those are the things that we should be working on, not making abortion illegal. When abortions happen, things have already gone wrong. For a person, now I'm not judging this person, but, like, that's not a great time in your life to be deciding whether or not to get an abortion, right? Like, let's always work upstream.
Fair enough, but we've said a couple times now the crux of this issue is when life starts. We disagree.
We do.
So I'm just trying to nail down when you actually think life starts. Obviously, it's not at birth because you said you wouldn't support an abortion the day before the due date. So I'm just trying to nail down exactly when it is then. If a child can survive at 22 weeks, is that the day? Would you want it before 22 weeks, but not after? When would you think it actually starts?
Is this child born at 22 weeks? Then sure, that's when life begins.
So it's always birth.
I guess so.
Even though the child could survive at 22 weeks.
I don't work in the medical field. I don't have a specific date and time when life would begin.
Well,
other than birth.
Okay. Okay, well, I mean, that is, again, the crux of the issue. So, do you think we found any common ground here today?
I think we both believe that we need more upstream solutions.
Yes.
And that eugenics is awful.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a big point in this conversation where we just don't see eye to eye. And I respect your opinion. I think that valuing life is really important. But that's also where I'm coming from. Do you see that?
I mean, yes, but I don't think that is more valuable than the right to life that the child has.
But again, that's where we don't see eye to eye.
Well, that's the whole problem. That's why there is this debate going on, rampaging through the country.
Oddly enough, I feel like we're coming at this issue with the same values. We just don't agree on the same facts. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, it's just those are important facts. That's all.
They are, but I'm not coming out of this argument angry with you or thinking that you're so awful and inhumane. Like, I think the fact that this is such a controversial issue really breaks up, like, bonds between people because we're just so divisive right now. But that's not how I see you at all. I completely understand where you're coming from. I just don't agree on the fact you're starting out with.
And I feel the same way. And ideally, this is how this conversation would go with everybody.
Ideally.
But this has never been the way this conversation has gone with anybody. So I think we're on the right track, at least.
Yeah.
Being civil about it.
I think so. Thank you. This has been the Great Compromise podcast. We appreciate you taking your time to listen. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and like us on Facebook and Twitter. We will see you next time.